I mentioned before we started today that we had Everett Piper joining us. He joins us often. I love having him with us. And he is joining us by phone, I believe. So we have him online in just a moment. If you recognize that name, Dr. Everett Piper, he is the author of Not a Daycare, a book that was sprang off of a column he wrote when he was the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University. He also has his own show. He also is a columnist for the Washington Times. And he's a great guest to have on, just an extremely erudite, articulate, and passionate advocate for keeping Christian values front and center in the American political and cultural conversation. And with that, I believe we have Everett Piper. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me on, Debbie.
I'm so glad you could join me. I don't know if we have Matt the Wonderful. Do we have his picture? Yeah, there you go. There we have him. There's Everett Piper. Okay, so Dr. Piper, you have these great columns. I love to always jump on them. And the one that might be most relevant today, since it's election day, you have a column called Joe Biden is a Pathological Liar. Well, that's a good start. I'd love to have you talk through, though, because I think that the word liar is flung around so often in politics that people assume, oh, everyone says that about everybody else. So I'd love to have you kind of go through the examples that you talk about in your column of why you say not just that he was caught lying once, but that Joe Biden is a pathological liar. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, the sources that I cite in this article are all, 99% of them, are political left. For example, ABC, CBS, and NBC. No apologists for right-wing politics, obviously. Sam Donaldson, Leslie Stahl, Ted Koppel, Sean King. These are the sources I cite in this article. And what do all of these people tell us over the years about Joe Biden? Number one, he has said over and over again that he was involved as a leader in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. False. He never was. That's a blatant lie. It's not true. Sean King, a left-wing civil rights activist, takes Joe Biden to task and says that he's guilty of stolen valor because he's claiming to be a participant in the Selma marches. He's claiming to be a leader in the black churches of the 1960s. All false, not true. Then we know in 1987-88, Joe Biden started saying that he went to law school on a full academic scholarship. Not true. He had a 50% scholarship. He also said he graduated in the top of his class. Not true. He graduated 76 out of 85 in law school. We also know that he plagiarized major portions in his assignments and received at least one F from a professor in college for plagiarizing 5 complete pages in one of the essays that he handed in. We also know that he plagiarized speeches time and time again. He plagiarized from Robert Kennedy, from JFK, from Hubert Humphrey, and from Neil Kinnock, the former labor leader of Great Britain. He plagiarized their speeches. And then he got caught. But here's the most egregious lie that Joe Biden has told. In 1972, his wife and daughter got killed in a traffic accident. They got hit by a semi-truck, a tractor-trailer rig on an icy day. Joe Biden immediately took to the stump and started claiming that Curtis C. Dunn, the driver of the tractor-trailer rig, was drunk, that he was a drunk driver and killed his wife and daughter, Joe Biden's wife and daughter. Not true. A man who later became a Supreme Court justice for the state of Delaware exonerated Curtis C. Dunn and said there was no evidence, zero evidence, that he had been drinking and driving. Joe Biden is not a decent man. A decent human being does not make up these egregious lies. And these are not just Trumpisms of exaggeration and hyperbole. And I'll be the first to admit that Donald Trump needs to tone down his exaggerations at times. But don't anybody dare tell me that Donald Trump's Trumpisms, hyperbole to the extreme, are equivalent to the stolen valor of claiming that you were part of the civil rights movement, to ruining a man's life by claiming he was a drunk driver and a murderer of your wife and daughter, and then going on and being caught in plagiarism time and time and time again. The guy can't tell the truth to save his soul. He is a pathological liar. He is a serial deceiver of the highest order.
I love that little summary, and I want to go back to the first one about the civil rights movement. I mean, all of them are offensive in various ways, but the whole thing about claiming to have been involved in as a civil rights leader, having been involved somehow in Selma and the black church of the 60s, that is pure political. What he's doing, he's playing to the black vote. He's trying to garner support from the black vote by claiming he was on their side. I mean, it is so patronizing, condescending, you know, that he could think he can lie about that, and black Americans will be so smitten by his support for them, they won't bother looking in to see whether it's true. And I find all of them offensive for different reasons, but that just seems like it's entirely for political gain on his part, thinking he's going to dupe these ignorant black voters into supporting him because he'll lie about how much he cared about them in decades when he wasn't paying any attention to them.
The man has been, and here's the thing, and we all know this to be true. Let's just be a little vulnerable as individuals right now. All of us, everybody listening to your show right now, has been guilty of telling a lie at one point or another in their life. And we all know this: the more you tell a lie, the deeper and deeper you dig the hole. And there's a time in our lives when you are so deceptive and so repetitive in telling a lie, you actually start believing it. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, I believe, at this stage in his life, has told these lies so often that he can't tell the difference between the truth and the lie. He doesn't know any longer on some of this stuff. He probably has convinced himself that these fabrications, these prevarications that he has been guilty of for decades, for at least 47 years of public leadership, he has been a serial liar, to the point where he now has a sickness, the pathology. The pathological liar is sick in his own mind. He can't even tell the difference between the truth and deception any longer. I firmly believe that's where Biden is in his life.
You know, on that topic of just convincing yourself of the truth of something, I had mentioned long ago, I don't know, on my show, the story about him having falsely accused the driver of the truck in which his first wife was involved in an accident, falsely accusing him, this driver was Curtis Dunn, of being drunk. And in fact, I remember years ago hearing Joe Biden speak, and he said a guy who drank his lunch. He had several ways he'd obviously worked into presenting the story in his speeches and remarks that were clever, like he had worked on the language to make them clever little, but he was approached, Biden was approached by the adult daughter of this Curtis Dunn, asking for an apology and asking for a correction, just saying my dad wasn't drunk. The accident was thoroughly investigated. Delaware Superior Court Judge Jerome Harrelly oversaw the police investigation. His chief prosecutor said there was no evidence. So an actual investigation occurred, no evidence supporting his claim, but Biden said it and said it and said it. In fact, when he kept saying it, I actually remember wondering if, well, maybe the investigation got it wrong. Maybe the guy was drunk. Why would Biden keep saying it? And that is a particularly bizarre lie, because he's doing it to engender sympathy. Biden is trying to engender, which you already have when you lose your wife and daughter in a car accident. Whoever, as it appears from the police report story, his wife was the one at fault. I think she ran a stop sign, missed a stop sign, whatever. She wasn't, and no one was saying she's a bad person, but she ran a stop sign and it caused this accident. But to get to the point of to have to lie and attribute fault to this driver and keep saying it, I just think there's something really bizarrely wrong with someone who would do that. And I realize I'm belaboring that story, but I find it astonishing you would do that to another human being. Okay, and then also, I guess, go ahead.
No, I obviously agree with you, and I think, again, you keep telling a lie for your own selfish gain. In fact, most lies that we tell are for selfish gain, for preservation, or for putting us in a position that we wouldn't be otherwise, to gain something and win something and achieve something. That's why we lie. And Biden used the deaths of his wife and daughter for political gain. He made up a story of Curtis C. Dunn, claimed he was drunk driving, no evidence to that effect, and he continued to do it for decades. Not just once or twice, for decades. And I think back to Bill Clinton when he said, I didn't have sex with that woman. I think Bill Clinton actually convinced himself that he didn't have sex with that woman. I think at first he knew he did, but then he started redefining and changing the definition of what sex is in his mind. We remember his equivocation when he says, well, it depends on what the definition of is.
Yeah.
So he was able to manipulate in his own mind this lie into being marginally true in his own mind. How Biden can do this with these egregious examples is beyond me. The point is, this man has no business being in the White House and the presidency of the United States, because a decent man does not lie like this. A devil does. A devil lies like this, but a decent man does not.
I love that point, and I know that your article didn't touch on this particular aspect of Joe Biden's recent political history, but the quality, the characteristic of being willing to lie, and then once you've established a lie you've told, you're just going to keep on saying it, has followed him into the way he's handling the discovery of his son, Hunter Biden's laptop. All of the emails that now show that Hunter Biden was getting positions, highly compensated positions for which he was completely unqualified, money flowing to him, Hunter Biden, a portion to the big guy, to dad. And emails showing this was a pattern in the Ukraine, in China, in Iraq, and yet you have Joe Biden stare at the camera and previously said, I've had no contact with my son over his business deals. I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about these people. And yet now the emails are saying, no, actually you had meetings arranged by, but it's like this quality you're describing, Dr. Piper, this willingness to lie has carried him over into truly dangerous territory for America, because Biden has been taking money from China and the Ukraine and other places, and now is in a position where he said, that's not true, that's not true. And he's going to, apparently, if he were to win today, march into the White House, pushing that lie out there. And if past practice is any indication, just keep on lying about it. And I think that's a real concern about his character and whether he can conduct the business of the president in an effective manner. What do you think?
Here's what they're going to do. If Biden wins, okay, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I hope you're right. I appreciate your optimism and the spirit with which you approach today's election. But let me be pessimistic. If Biden wins, he won't be president of the United States for 6 minutes. Now, that's hyperbolic. It may be 6 weeks. It may be 6 months. But my point is this. Biden will not be in the White House long term. Here's why. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the squad, they will declare him unfit to serve. And here's the way they'll do it. They'll say he obviously has onset dementia because he can't seem to remember events in his past life. And they'll point to some of the proof of his deceit in this China situation and Burisma situation, and they'll say, well, he wasn't intentionally lying. He obviously has the onset of dementia. He can't remember. Therefore, he's unfit to serve. We need to remove him from office using the 25th Amendment, and Kamala Harris will become president of the United States. Mark my words. If he wins today, he's not the president. Kamala Harris will be within a blink of an eye.
Okay, Dr. Piper, I have to tell you, my best friends in law school had this really funny expression. She would say, after I would make some observation, she'd say, I'm ashamed of myself. I did not think of that myself. What I mean by that in this context is, I have been saying all along, obviously he's suffering. He's not early stage dementia. He's down the path a bit, very confused often. They can't let him stay in very long. He's going to have to be removed. They're going to find some way, whether he will gracefully do it or he gets forced out by Pelosi and the pack. But I had not thought of, and this is where I'm saying I'm ashamed I didn't think of that myself, I did not think of the idea that dementia argument is going to be the excuse the Democrats offer for everything he can't remember about Burisma, China, Ukraine, Iraq, Romania. There's a whole bunch of other countries coming into play now. And all of that will be not only the explanation, he's not a liar, he's just got dementia, but it'll also be the reason there can't possibly be criminal culpability for his actions.
Spot on.
So right.
That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen if he wins. Lord help us if he wins. I pray that he doesn't. But if he does, we really, the American people didn't elect Joe Biden to be the president. He's a cardboard cutout. He's nothing. He's nothing. And he is suffering something, whether it's onset of the Alzheimer's or just dementia. I don't know, but he's suffering something. And he's also suffering the pathological nature of lying for over a half a century about some major issues. And that will be used as an excuse to remove him from office.
I think you're so right. As I often quote on this show my best friend from law school. She is a very funny person, full of quips and quick lines, and they often fit in conversations. And that was one of the best ones. I'm ashamed I didn't think of that myself. But yeah, it is going to be the complete excuse for him. Well, you know what, Dr. Piper, we got started a little bit late today. I'm not really even sure why. But I want to thank you. I'm so glad you're available to talk today. I love that we can connect frequently, once a month. And I want to ask you, as we close out to our interview, tell our listeners how they can find you and your podcast.
Go to dreverettpiper.com/podcast. And I'll spell that out. dreverettpiper.com/podcast. That'll take you to my daily radio show, The Rebellion. And you can also go to dreverettpiper.com and you can follow my writing for the Washington Times. I'm a weekly columnist for them. And you can engage with me there. And if you want me to speak or whatnot, you can go check out some of my speeches and that type of thing. Okay?
That sounds perfect. And I will tell our listeners, I have heard Dr. Everett Piper speak more than once. He's on the show, which I love having him here. Heard him speak more than once. Stellar speaker. And I know, in fact, I will be hearing him again in December of this year. I believe he's coming to the Dallas area to speak one time. If your organizations are looking for a very inspiring and entertaining and well-informed speaker, you will love having him. So I encourage you to look into him. And also, I meant to make a comment to you, Dr. Piper. Your column is one of the few that I feel like I should have my dictionary next to me while I'm reading them. I love words. I love the history of words and learning new definitions and learning new words. And I still, almost every one of your columns, I'm like, what is that word? And I have to look them up. So love your writing, love your help in improving my vocabulary. And thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, take care. Thank you, Debbie. Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, folks, he's just a great guy and would be a great, as I say, a great speaker at your organization. So